Good evening, everybody. This is not a statement, this is merely a question. And so, therefore, I hope I don't get my a dink on my. A ding, is it called? On my Twitter. What I'm hearing is that they're saying they want us to wait until every American is vaccinated for the coronavirus before they can assume that we have herd immunity. I just heard this on the radio just now. And what I don't understand is, if generally this illness is not very dangerous, except for a small percentage of the population, wouldn't it be sufficient to vaccinate those who are at risk of serious complications? Let's say those who are over 60 with other comorbidities, right away, and then just let everybody else just catch it and get it out of their system, like we used to do with chickenpox when we were kids, Wouldn't that be more natural? Wouldn't that be more effective? And also, if so many people had the virus, wouldn't we assume that they are already immune? And if that's the case, then why do those people need a vaccination? And then the other question is, why don't they, insist on an antibody test before giving the vaccination? So since it seems to be something that's difficult to come by and limited resource, wouldn't it be wasteful to give it to somebody who already has antibodies? I understand that the antibodies don't last forever, but if we're talking about someone who at least currently has antibodies, shouldn't they be discouraged from receiving the vaccine? My understanding would be that the immunity would wipe out, a virus needs a host to exist on, in order to spread. And I understand the issues of mutations and new strains that come out, etc. But, let's put two and two together and figure this thing out. So that's kind of the issue that we're looking at here that I want to know. That's about the COVID issue. The other issue, I'll tell people what I did. I'm not really the type of person who likes to encourage other people to do this stuff. Although in this case it might be, you might have, if you agree with me on this issue, it might be worthwhile to share what I'm about to say. So people know there's an organization, YAFED, and that they have 2 YouTube channels. And their newer YouTube channel, they have been they've been advertising on YouTube, and so you can watch a Frum Jewish video on YouTube, and the advertisement that you're going to get is from YAFED, which is an anti-Orthodox organization that seeks to undermine religious freedom in general in America, not just against Orthodox Jews. Nicholas Moster, who's the chairman and the founder of this organization, has openly stated that he opposes the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, which as a prison chaplain offends me incredibly, because this is a law that protects the rights of institutionalized persons to express their religious freedom, meaning prisoners and mental patients and others. I am also a chaplain in a mental hospital, although I haven't been there since Purim. And the fact that he's attacking this federal law that was signed into law by Bill Clinton, not exactly a Bible thumper, although maybe by the standards of today's communist Democrat Party, he might be considered a Bible thumper because he's from down south, Little Rock, Arkansas. So who knows, So anyway, and it was a bipartisan bill that was, had overwhelming support, and the fact that this Muster is opposing this law, it's not only an issue for the Hasidic Jewish community, which is a tiny, small, minuscule minority in America, but he's literally attacking the religious rights of all Americans in all 50 states. So, and my argument has always been, if he really cared about education, so the way to handle this thing is by grassroots, free market approach, which would say, people have the choice, open different schools to give different options, and people can have the choice to send their children to these schools. And then, of course, when a child reaches 18 and they decide they don't want to live that lifestyle, well, then that's their choice, how they want to handle the decisions that the parents made. The fact of the matter is, my children attend the most cloistered Hasidic schools, and they are all very well educated, and they know about the world, and they probably, I would say, know history and science and things better than most of the public school kids. And I went to public school, and I went to college, and my kids who go to very, very what I guess would be called ultra-Orthodox, if there's anything in the world that's ultra-Orthodox, it's the schools where my kids go. And my kids, in fact, if I have any complaint, it's my kids don't have some of my kids don't have the grasp of the Jewish education that they should have. And a lot of it is not from what you get in school, but it's what you get in home. And it's because, my kids are, and they go to very good schools, but my kids grew up speaking English, and I put them into Yiddish-speaking schools, kind of along the lines of how the Zionist schools have the Ivrit Bivrit programs, where the religious studies are all conducted in Hebrew, whether or not the kids understand Hebrew, with the hope that the kids will pick up Hebrew, approaching it that way. And so my approach, more or less, is that my kids will pick up Yiddish, having all of their religious studies in Yiddish. It worked for my girls, not so much for my boys. I'm not sure why, but in any event, my kids go to these schools, and they are not deprived in any way from secular studies. I hope they will. But again, because they get most of that at home, just having parents who, and so if parents want their kids to know this stuff, they can teach it. And the truth of the matter is, the girls get an education that is not only substantially equivalent from a secular standpoint, but substantially superior to the public schools. And my other argument is that the substantial equivalency that New York state law has is essentially it's a red herring, and it's purposefully obtuse and ambiguous, that it could be interpreted either and it doesn't really specify so many things. It could be interpreted in a manner that one could understand it to mean, what are you learning in yeshiva? I would say, not just from a religious standpoint, but from a secular standpoint, the level of scholarship and study that goes on in any yeshiva, they're not just sitting and singing hymns all day. They're studying in various languages, in Hebrew and Aramaic and Yiddish and so forth, very, very intense texts that teach personological thinking, that contain aspects of science and history, language arts, mathematics. It's all in there. So I would say, again, even the most cloistered, ultra Hasidic school that doesn't provide English studies in high school, which is legal because at a certain age you're allowed to drop out of school, and these are technically, you could say, perhaps high school dropouts legally. That's how it was always explained to me, that legally you're allowed to drop out of high school at a certain age, and that's essentially what the Hasidic schools are. They're essentially legally high school dropouts because they're not getting a regent's diploma, but it doesn't matter because they're being taught stuff that most college kids wouldn't be able to handle. And let's say it was in Latin or Greek and English instead of Hebrew and Aramaic and Yiddish. The level of scholarship and study, it's very, very high level of study. And it's vastly superior to the secular schools. With all that being said, and the truth of the matter is, a lot of these schools are accredited by arts, which means that if you go to Kollel, you can have a bachelor's degree that's accredited and recognized by the United States, or a master's degree, just the same as if you had something from a Christian seminary that's accredited by a Christian accreditation organization. So pretty much that's the issues that we're talking about here. So what did I do? How did I handle this when I saw this video? I reported it. You can report videos to YouTube. I understand they took all of Louis Farrakhan's videos down off of YouTube, which for me, in my work as a prison chaplain, makes my job a lot harder because I was downloading his videos and uploading them, burning them to DVDs so his devotees there in the prison could have the opportunity to hear their religious teachings. So that's the situation. But what I wrote is that this is an anti-Semitic organization, and they're much worse than Louis Farrakhan. And if it's shameful that if they took Louis Farrakhan down, I didn't say that I kind of wish Louis Farrakhan was still there, even though I disagree with him. I certainly think that Nick Muster is a million times more dangerous to the Orthodox Jewish community than Michigan, a loudmouth like Louis Farrakhan. And Farrakhan sometimes has nice spiritual messages, to be honest. I have to listen to him for work, and as much as I might disagree with him, I don't see how he is really dangerous. He's not a violent person, as opposed to this Nick Muster, who's a danger not only to the Jewish community, but like I said, to the American community as a whole, as we see from his attacks on the federal law. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. We'll see you later.